gonna talk more about the Cambrian period.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Cambria was the name given to Wales. So they named the Cambrian period after Wales because I think the first deposit of Cambrian rocks they found was in Wales. Fun fact.
Why would they be found in Wales?
Alright. So, you guys were super excited about the Cambrian explosion, so I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about the climate and why these animals were able to thrive the way they did. So, as we can see, our Cambrian period lasted from 541 million to 485.4 million years ago. That's a little more than 56 million years worth of time. So what was it like during this period? We're gonna find out. So
Hot? Was it cold?
To start, we're actually gonna go back a little further than the Cambrian to the Ediacaran period of the Precambrian era. The Ediacaran was a marked time of glacial ice. So at the end of the Ediacaran period, a large portion of the supercontinent Pannotia was covered with an ice sheet.
I'm just saying, how do we know it's an ice age? Because of all the ice!
And we can see it on this map here. Lots of ice. Yeah.
So you definitely needed a heavy coat.
You need your I didn't ask to live in a frozen wasteland coat. It's what I called the coat I wore when I lived in Montana. It doesn't work anywhere else, it's not cold enough. So, by the time that our Cambrian period rolls around, the supercontinent of Pannotia was starting to break up. We ended up with a supercontinent called Rodinia and a couple of islands that are scattered about. Rodinia sat at the South Pole. The glacial ice was starting to melt off of it. As it began to break up more, we can see we have multiple continents now as Rodinia begins to break apart. So, Pannotia sat at the South Pole during the Ediacaran, and it was covered in ice. As the Cambrian took over, it started to break up into Rodinia.
We're not dating anymore, I'm sorry.
Is this a joke?
No, it's not.
You're breaking up with me?
Rodinia began to break apart as the Cambrian continued. And we started seeing sea level rise as ice melted, which means lots of shallow seas began to form. All of the light-colored areas are shallow seas.
Under the sea.
So we'll take a look at each of our continents. In the Cambrian, North America was part of a continent called Laurentia.
Gesundheit.
Now, Laurentia was basically just North America with Greenland attached to it. And it wasn't even all of North America. Part of North America was actually attached to Gondwana, which was our major continent at the time. So our southeastern United States was not part of our very first piece of North America here. It's actually a different continent. So, Laurentia sat between the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn during the Cambrian period, so it was warm, it was tropical, a little bit of temperate, but mostly tropical, which meant the water all the way around it was nice and warm. Most of the continent was underwater. We had plenty of places for animals to thrive.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Then we have...
And plants.
Yes-ish. Plants are weird. Then we have Europe. So Europe, for most of Europe's existence, it tends to be these teeny tiny little islands all over the place.
For the islands I pulled from the sea.
Most of the time. And the Cambrian was no different. So here's Laurentia, which we talked about, North America. We have Siberia, its own little island over here. Kazakhstan, which is part of Asia, technically, a little island over here. Baltica, would have been our Eastern European countries, Scandinavia, and European Russia. So they're all kind of smashed in here, and then everything else was just these scattered islands all over the place.
Because Europe just really loves its islands. They just never wanted to give them up.
No, never. They came back again in the Jurassic period. The islands that... Huh?
Anyways.
I forgot about that song existing at all. So, anyway, that takes us to Asia. Asia was mostly a collection of islands around Gondwana.
I am an island.
So Gondwana would have been our big major continent here. So we have North and South China are two separate chunks of island. There's lots of little islands that don't really show up on this map, but do show up on this one. Lots of little islands where all of our Asian countries are at this point. Aside from Arabia and India, which are both part of Gondwana. But everything else, islands. We really like our islands in the Cambrian. Most of our Asian countries, oh, I had another map. Most of our islands were also within our tropical zone here. So Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Siberia, China. North China is actually up in our temperate zone. But South China is down here in our tropic zone. At least at this point. Cambrian stage 3, so we're getting close to not being in the Cambrian at this point. And see how much things have shifted. Then we have Gondwana. So Gondwana actually hangs around for a very, very long time after the Cambrian. But it is our big continent over here. We had some major orogenic events, or mountain building events, in South America, so in Argentina, and in Antarctica and Australia. Australia was very volcanic. We have lots of volcanic rocks from the Cambrian period in Australia. So we know that it was actually a volcanic arc way up in the corner here. You can see it's like this island chain that looks a lot like Hawaii. Again, a lot of it is sitting in our tropic zone, but we do have some still sitting in our polar zone. Or not our polar zone, our temperate zone. Our polar zone's way down here. We can't actually see the polar zones in these lines.
So, speaking of Hawaii, how old are the Hawaiian Islands? Like, when did they start forming? Since
They're not very old at all.
since I know they're not.
In the grand scheme of things, if we're thinking geologic here,
babies.
so here's our grandparent volcanoes here in Australia during the Cambrian. Hawaiian Islands, they're babies. They're babies. They're like newborns. They're not very old at all. Especially considering that they're still erupting. So, a lot of our climate is controlled by our ocean currents.
To the East Australian Current.
Dude, you're riding it, dude!
If we were to look at a modern day map, I mean, every storm that's hit us here in Salt Lake this winter has come off of the Pacific Ocean through California, through Nevada, and right at us. Everything's coming directly off the ocean. That's why we are getting as much moisture as we are here. I mean, moisture comes right off the ocean and it dumps on us because we're up on a high elevation, and the mountains basically block those clouds, and the clouds get stopped because they're kind of heavy, and they're like, well, guess we're dumping the load here. Well, here, we don't have very many mountains in the Cambrian. We have a little in our big continent, but all of our little island chains, I mean, there's a little bit of volcanism going on in Siberia, but not enough to really affect where moisture's going. All of our islands are surrounded by these warm tropical currents. Baltica's a little cooler, so it's getting our temperate climate coming in here. We also can see that at both of our poles, there's no landmass here. So, without a landmass there,
It just keeps going and going and going and going.
that's not where I was going with this. We're not the Energizer Bunny. There's nothing for ice to build on, so we have no glaciers during the Cambrian period. Ice requires land in order to grow, water actually kind of stifles it because it's a lot harder to freeze ocean water than it is to freeze water on land. And part of it's a depth thing, part of it is salinity. Salinity is going to change our freezing point of our water, so it's a lot harder to freeze ocean water because that freezing point drops. So,
Because it's a salty bitch.
yep. Yes, it is. So, without ice caps, we have no water being trapped anywhere aside from groundwater or, lakes maybe that get filled in, but likely, or lakes that get dried out, but unlikely because of how wet this time period.
Darling, it's better down where it's wetter. Take it from me.
So, we have a lot of water circulating through our water cycle is really pumping it out. So it's warm, it's wet. Warm, wet and wild. There's no ice. It is ideal to start growing things like bugs.
Ew.
Yes. And it's the perfect base to create a lot of diversity. If you look at our ecosystems now, where is the majority of our diversity, Miss Biologist?
It's in the bugs.
Well, it isn't the bugs, but I'm talking climate-wise.
Oh, climate-wise.
Like, which habitats have the most diversity?
It's definitely in the warmer climates where there's warmth.
Yeah, so rainforests, absolutely.
But here's the thing, where are the bigger things located? In the colder places.
Well, that's a whole different thing that I will definitely get to, especially come Ice Age talks, because...
Well, I'm just saying that because, people are just like, I don't want to deal with big bugs. Well, we don't want colder weather then, do we? Will it make the bugs bigger?
It's all about the carbon dioxide, actually.
This is true.
So, we have our diversity. So, here are a list of our major sites. So, we have our Alden River in Siberia. Now, as we mentioned before, and I will go back to our good map, Siberia here, sitting in our tropic zone. And so, we can see that there's going to be a nice place for those animals to grow. We have our Wyman Formation, and...
Just why, man? Why?
Oh man, do I remember where Wyman is? I believe Wyman is one of our Utah. Yeah, so Wyman, Wheeler, and Margin Formation are Utah fossils, so we can see they're found in here, which is really not that far from the the most famous Cambrian site, the Burgess Shale in Canada. So look at that, Utah and Canada were neighbors in the Cambrian period. They're not now. We have our Latham Shale, which is in California, which I'm guessing is probably somewhere in this area. California is weird because a lot of California is not actually a continental rock, which is something I can explain
Even
in
to
a
this
geology
day,
lesson.
California is weird. Look at the people there.
There must be something in the water.
Yep, sorry Matthew, you're weird.
We're not sorry.
And then we have a bunch of these other ones that are less famous around the world. We have a bunch. I didn't even put the big one from freaking China. So that one, I know.
She doesn't even have it written down, guys, in her notes. Her cheat codes. She should, but she doesn't.
I do have it written somewhere over the rainbow.
Several song-filled hours later.
Oh, it's in the other notebook.
Ha!
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
The one in China is called the Maotian Shale. Maotian Shale. It's also known as the Xinjiang biota. There's also a really nice one.
If we didn't pronounce that correctly, and when I mean we, I mean her, please let us know how to pronounce it in the comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna admit, I don't know Chinese. I know French and a little bit Spanish, and I can pretty much figure out the other Romance languages if I try hard enough.
I know a little bit, but that is because I watch Korean dramas, Chinese dramas, and a bunch of anime.
Anyway, the last of the really cool ones I want to point out is the Sirius Passet Formation, which is over here in Greenland on the other side from the Burgess Shale. It's not quite as big with the stuff they find there,
But they were quite serious.
several bad puns later.
I named it after Sirius Black. No, the star, the dog star. Which I don't know why, because there's no dogs in this formation. And there won't be dogs there for a long, long while. The point being, we have lots of really good sites with animals in them. The Burgess Shale being the most famous, mostly just because it was found in like 1909, I want to say. So it's been around for a while in the literature, so everyone's like, oh, Burgess Shale. The really neat thing about all of these, and I'm pretty sure it's all of them, they're all Lagerstättens, so there's immaculate preservation with these animals. And the next video, we'll be doing a bunch of short ones where we talk about the various biota that you can find in these sites. And we will start with the Burgess Shale because everybody's so excited about Burgess Shale. And I don't blame them, there's lots of cool shit in there.
I'm not excited.
You should. There's sea squirt and spiky sponges and 1,000,001 trilobites.
When we get to the fossilized penguins, that's when I'll be excited.
I mean, that's fair.
Penguins.
Okay then. It's clear what we need to do next.
Keep in mind, dinosaur paleontologists talking about invertebrates for who knows how long because they're important. They're important. Sorry, I am having such a rough day, guys.
Rough. That sounds rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
It is rough. Anyway, so there'll be more on our Cambrian period later, and we will fossilize later.
It's a different world, so you might need to adjust. Damn, last field season, we went hiking in the heat to do some stratigraphy of the dry geology. Last field season, we found fossils.